Author and publisher Terry Whalin has been in book publishing for decades and worked with hundreds of authors. Many of these authors have unrealistic expectations about what will happen when their book is published. Terry offers valuable tips in today's episode and clearly explains how much of the publishing process is outside of anything an author can control. Terry has written 10 publishing myths to give authors realistic expectations and encouragement to take practical action steps to make their book a success. With an estimated 600 million blogs, Terry is one of the top 27 content producers with over 1,700 entries in his blog on the writing life. Listeners may use the following link at publishingoffer.com to take advantage of a special offer from Terry where anyone can get his printed book, 10 Publishing Myths, Insight Every Author Needs to Succeed, for only $10. More information can be found at Terry's website, Terry Whalin, that's WHALIN.com. Listen in. Well, hello. Teresa and I are absolutely honored to have with us today Terry Whalin, who's going to talk to us a bit about his latest book. Welcome, Terry, to Earrings Off.
Hey, Lou and Teresa, I'm really glad to be here with you guys and be able to talk about books.
Oh, absolutely. Well, so Terry, what is the first step that most people take to write a book? And, talk about that. And why is that first step seemingly backwards?
Yeah, what happens is people get told over and over that they should write a book, or they get this idea that they should write a book. And so almost all of us have computers these
Mhm.
days. So they just sit down at their computer, they open a file, and they just start writing that
Uh-huh.
book.
Uh-huh.
And and that's good. Don't get me wrong. It's always good to have a manuscript in motion, but in a lot of ways that's backwards because really the first step, I think, is to write a book proposal. And a
Mhm.
book proposal is really essentially your business plan as an author about why in the world you're writing your book in the first place. I mean,
Mhm.
otherwise, you write some book that you don't really have a plan for. You don't really know how long it should be. You don't really know what you're going to do to market the book. You just don't have any plan. So I think it's better. It's really more effective these days for you to be able to write something that's a book proposal, which it gives your business plan and says, "Hey, this is why I'm writing this, and this is why you should be interested in this."
Hmm. Okay. That's very good. I hadn't really heard about that in terms of how important that was to start there. So thanks for that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, Talk a little bit about acquisition editors and what is the role within a book publisher?
Yeah, I've done this. I'm actually at my third publisher now where I'm an acquisitions editor. And so basically I'm the first person that reads the material that comes in over the transom, whether it's from a literary agent or whether it's from an individual. Uh, I read it. I see whether that idea that somebody's pitching to me is going to be the right kind of idea for the publishing house. We don't take everything,
Hmm.
even though at Morgan James we publish a lot of books every year. We're doing somewhere between 150 and 180 books a year. So there's a lot of material going through the publishing house. But I'm the guy that talks to the author, makes sure the author and the book are the right book for us to publish. And then I turn to my colleagues and I pitch my book to them to say, hey, this is why we ought to give this author a book contract. And then when I get that contract, I send it off to the author, and I'm the guy that negotiates with either the author or their literary agent or their representative until the book gets actually signed, until
Hmm.
people sign it.
Hmm. Hmm. As the acquisitions editor, if you're the first person to look at this, then if it doesn't get past you, then it's sort of is it dead in the water at that point?
Well, potentially it is dead in the water. I mean, we don't publish poetry, for
Yeah.
example, at Morgan James. We don't do coffee table books.
Okay.
We don't do cookbooks. I
Hmm.
mean, basically those kind of books are very specialized
Right.
where we do novels, we do a few children's picture books. It's
Uh-huh.
pretty hard to find those, but we do a few of those. But mostly the bulk of what we do at Morgan James is really in the nonfiction trade
Okay.
area. So we do business, self-help, all
Hmm.
kinds of books like that.
Wow.
So it's a
Okay.
broad sweep of
Hmm.
things that I'm looking for, but I'm just wanting to make sure it's the right
Fit.
book and the right
Okay.
author.
Okay.
Well, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I'm so curious. Have you ever passed on one that was a big hit that that ended up being
Uh,
a big hit? Big hit.
I'm sure I have. I'm sure I have. Because, I mean, I usually tell people to be an acquisitions editor is like trying to drink water out of a fire hose. You
Yeah, I
Yeah, I can
can't
bet. I
imagine.
imagine the
bet. Yeah.
volume of
Yeah.
material that's coming
Yeah.
toward me.
Yeah.
And so the reality is you have to make a decision
Right.
kind of instantly, read a couple pages. I mean, I've interviewed other acquisitions editors and I ask them how they make a decision. They say, well, Terry, I read the first line, and if it's a good line, I read the
Yeah.
next line.
Yeah.
And if it's a
Yeah.
good paragraph, I read the next paragraph. Well,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
that's essentially what I do too. So I read a page or two and I say, oh, okay. I saw their cover letter. I looked at a page or two. This could be a good author for us.
Yeah.
And so then I
Okay.
set up a meeting with them and I talked to them about the rest of it. But sometimes on the surface, it doesn't look like something that's going to work for us. I mean, I had an author sign their contract with Morgan James yesterday, but the very first time this author pitched me something, he pitched me a 9,000 word novel.
Hmm.
Well, too short. People
That's
don't
what I'm
realize
thinking.
that even a novella has to be at least 35,000 words.
Hmm.
The
Wow. Mhm.
9,000 words is really, really short. And
Hmm.
so I could have said pass, but I didn't.
Hmm.
Instead, I thought, well, people are probably passing on this guy's novel rather than giving him a chance
Some
by
feedback. Yeah.
telling him
Yeah.
how long his novel should be. And
Yeah.
so I told him that. And he basically said, well, okay, I'll expand my novel. And so now he's
Hmm.
been writing a longer novel that's going to be
Hmm.
the right kind of word length. People
Wow.
don't even realize it. They don't even think that, most books in the bookstore are spine out. So your book it can't be a pamphlet, it's
Hmm.
got to be
Yeah. Right.
something that's gonna take its space on the bookshelf. So there's all these questions that the writer really often, unless they're thinking about it,
Hmm.
doesn't think about that. And
Wow.
so I've got to help them understand what we need in order to be able to get a book that we can publish.
Mm.
Well, I tell you, Terry, as you're talking, it just makes me think. Before this interview, I had two professions that I really believe I missed my calling in. One was a gospel singer. There's a problem because I can't sing. The second is some type of sports analyst because I love sports. And now I'm thinking I should have gotten into the book business. I love books. Now I'm so jealous. I mean, do you know I probably would feel like I've died and gone to heaven if I could be surrounded by something like that? I am so incredibly jealous, Terry. Just jealous. I'm just going to be honest about it. But I digress. I'll go on to the next question. Okay. So, Terry, tell us what is one of the biggest surprises to authors about book publishers?
Well, one of the biggest surprises is that publishers, I mean, we love books, don't get me wrong, and we do market and sell your book, but the primary place that we're marketing and selling your book is to the bookstores. So
Mm.
like Morgan James, for example, the we're selling our books into 98% of the bookstores in North America, including the brick and mortar stores. So it's not just on Amazon. As a matter of fact,
Hmm.
we try to teach our authors not to use that word,
Hmm.
Amazon, because you can imagine retailers believe, right or wrong, that Amazon's destroyed their business over the years. So they don't really care if you're an Amazon bestseller.
Hmm.
What they care about is what's your book about? Is it the right book for us? Can we convince other people to buy your book? But the real surprise for authors is that, and this is one of the lessons that I've learned over the years after writing all these books for traditional publishers that were not selling for me, is I had to learn that I, as the author, have to be telling people about my book. I have to be marketing my book because booksellers or publishers rather, book publishers can get your book inside the bookstore.
Hmm.
But what moves that book out of the bookstore and into people's hand is the activity of the author. So if that author isn't doing anything to be telling people about their book, then the book doesn't move out of the bookstore. One of the things that happened during the Great Depression years ago is that book publishers or booksellers came to publishers and said, "Oh, we can't take all the risk on these books. We have to have the right to return them for the lifetime of the book." So the true story, when you go in your local Barnes and Nobles and you see all these hardcover books, they're in the doorway, they're in the bargain section of the bookstore. The real story on those books is they're getting ready to be boxed up and returned to the publisher.
Wow.
Wow, never knew that.
And
Mm-mm.
so what you have to do as an author is you have to understand that whole dynamic that's going on, and you have to actively be out there to tell people about your book. I mean, there's dozens of ways to be promoting and telling people about your book, but you have to be active in that process.
Hmm.
Otherwise, nobody sells books and it doesn't really go anywhere for you. I mean,
Hmm.
at Morgan James, we've been around over 20 years now. We've sold over 20 million books, produced over 6,000 titles. We have a lot of books out there in the bookstore. And during the pandemic, a few years ago, you can imagine bookstores closed, distributors closed, people returned books. We had 175,000 returns.
Wow.
I mean, that's like $2.5 million worth of books that came back. And to be honest, they don't come back in good shape. Sometimes they're beat up,
Okay.
so they just
Uh-huh.
have to be thrown away and destroyed. So the answer for that is the author has to be doing something to be telling people about their book.
Right. So it's just not enough that you write something great. You've got to actually work the process to be in it.
You do, you
Yeah.
do. I've met the Chicken Soup for the Soul authors, for example, that
Hmm.
and people forget those guys were rejected 160 times,
Wow, I
over
didn't know that.
160 times before they finally found somebody to publish that first Chicken Soup for the Soul book.
Yeah.
And they found this little publisher in Florida to publish that first book. And they told their publisher they were going to sell 1 million books in the first year. And their publisher laughed at them because they never sold 1 million copies of anything. They thought that was a ridiculous idea. It took them a year and a half to sell their first 1 million books.
Wow.
And now Chicken Soup for the Soul is one of the most prolific books in the English language. I mean, look at all the different Chicken Soup for the
Oh,
Soul
yeah.
books that
And
are
they're
out there.
great. Yeah.
But you know
Yeah.
what these guys did, what hardly anybody talks about, is they practiced what they call the rule of five. They got up every day and they did 5 things to be telling people about their book. I mean, they did a podcast like this, or a radio interview, or a television interview, or a magazine article, or a guest blog post. I mean, there's lots and lots of different things that you can do, but the fact that they did five and they did it over and over and over is really what
Hmm.
made the difference. Most
I,
writers give up, they don't persevere and being consistent
I was about to
and
say that
persevering
consistency.
are
Yeah.
really key elements in this whole
Wow.
process.
Wow.
all
Very
righty
good
then.
stuff.
So are editors and agents actively looking for new authors or simply publishing people who already have the inside track?
Well, that's a good question. Often we are publishing people that have been published before.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they've been published with us, maybe they've been published with another publishing company. So we are looking for people that understand kind of the publishing business, but we're also looking for new authors. And so
Mm-hmm.
one of the ways that you can get around that as an author, and a lot of authors never think about this, is to get published before you pitch your first book. So there's all these publications out there, magazines, print magazines, for example,
Hmm.
and every magazine online has guidelines telling you what the editor wants.
Hmm.
If your book during the lifetime of the book sells 5,000 copies, that's a good number. If it sells 5,000 in the magazine market, it's very easy to reach 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 people with your magazine article. And so those are the kind of people that we want to publish as book publishers because they kind of understand the drill as far as what to do, how to meet a deadline. And a magazine article is maybe 500 to 1,000, 1,200 words. In other words, it's much easier to write that than to
Hmm.
write a 50 or 100,000 word book. So, and look at all the additional people you can reach and the additional attention you'll get from a literary agent and a book editor because you have been published.
Hmm. 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 Okay. That's very helpful. So, Terry, what makes book proposals that sell different from the other how-to books about this topic?
Well, one of the distinctions about book proposals that sell is that I wrote this book as a frustrated acquisitions editor. I mean,
Hmm.
I would go into these dog and pony show meetings with my publishing house where the president of the company, the chief operating officer, the vice president of sales, the vice president of marketing, the vice president of editorial, all these key salespeople would be in this huge room,
Hmm.
and I would go in and pitch my book to these people. But sometimes I didn't walk out of there with a contract for the
Hmm.
author. And
Hmm.
often it was because one or more pieces of their business plan or their book proposal weren't in the material that I had. And
Mm.
so the difference with book proposals that sell is I wrote this out of my own frustration because I was trying to get better submissions. That's all I was trying to do. Well, the book has succeeded way beyond my expectations. It's got
Mm.
over 150 five-star reviews.
Oh,
People have told
wow.
me they've got a literary agent, they've got a $50,000 advance. I mean, all kinds of good things happen because I help them understand what that editor is really looking for because that's the perspective that I wrote from.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations.
I know, I
Yeah.
know. So why does the author have to understand the competition for their proposed idea?
Well, because every book competes in the marketplace
Mm-hmm.
and people don't think about that. I mean, people will pitch me something and they'll say, well, my book's for everybody or my book's for, every adult. Well, that's not true. I mean,
Hmm.
ev there are over 11,000 new books that are published every day. That includes all the self-publishing books. So you basically have to figure out who is your ideal reader? Who's the person that you're trying to reach? And then go in your local bookstore and look at the books that are in that particular section. Maybe it's maybe it's women's fiction, or maybe it's self-help or whatever. But look at the best-selling books in those that section, and that's your competition. Those that's who you're really competing against. Uh, when I worked at Howard uh, Publishing, when it made the jump to Howard Books, a part of Simon and Schuster, um, as a part of my filling out my paperwork to get the author or the literary agent a book contract, I had to list the competitive titles. Well, that's not really my job to figure that out. So each time I push that back on the literary agent or the author to give me that information, but I had to get that information before I could even fill out my paperwork to get them a
Mm-hmm.
contract. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very important for every author to understand that where their book fits in the big picture of books, and how their book is going to compete.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Terry, you might have shared a bit about this earlier with the book proposal, but what do you mean when you ask authors to cast a vision for the book?
Yeah, what I encourage them to do there is to really uh, think about, walk into the bookstore and take a look around and almost visualize your book in that bestseller list, or
Mm-hmm.
in a certain section, or in on the end cap of
Mm-hmm.
a bookstore. Uh, have that kind of vision as far as what your book's going to look like. What's the title going to be? Is it a good title? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, a good title, for example, is usually 3 to 5 words, and it has to be a few words because most books are spine out in the
Mm-hmm.
bookstore. So if you have a huge title, you're not going to have room for that on the spine of the book. Those are all things that we know about because we work in this
Right.
industry and we
Right.
think about
Right.
this stuff, but a lot of authors never think about it. So
Okay.
they have you have to find a really good title, and authors will tell me, well, that's the publisher's job. They're going to come up with the title.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's true. Ultimately, they're going to have the final probably say what your title is going to be. But my experience from working in book publishing a long time is that if you come up with a really good title and maybe some alternative titles, then your title is going to be the one that's going to be on the book at the end of the day. The situation you do not want to be in as an author, and I've been in it a number of times. I've been in meetings with editorial and sales and marketing, and we have a huge whiteboard full of all kinds of titles about a book that we're talking about. The one person that's not in the room is the
Mm-hmm.
author.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is your chance in the book proposal to really be in the room and give a really good title and give some alternative titles, because you don't want to be in that kind of situation where somebody
Right.
else is going to name your book at the end of
Yeah.
the day.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so you talk about the publisher's responsibility when it comes to the title. Well, I'm thinking, why isn't it the publisher's responsibility to market the book? Why is that on the author?
Yeah, that's really a good question. And the publisher is going to market the book. Don't get me wrong. We care about the book. We want it to sell well. That's the primary way at Morgan James, for example, we as a publisher make money is by selling those books. So it's very important to us. But I don't care who the publisher is. Our attention for each book, I mean, if we're doing 150 books a year, our attention for each book is divided where you as the
Mm-hmm.
author, you have a passion, you have a real desire for your book to get out there and reach people. And so I always encourage people to take that desire and that passion and channel that into their work, to be telling other people about their book. And because you're the best person to really do that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's not your publisher. I mean, we hope your publisher will market and sell your book, but we can't count on that. That's that's one of the things that I've learned in this business.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate your honesty, Terry, in sharing that. So you earlier you referenced some people who benefited from your book, but can you share a little bit more, some results from people that you've heard from who's used your book?
Well, yeah, it's amazing. I have people that write me that say that they mirrored the sample proposal that's in the back of book proposals that sell, or they read my book. They read it every time they write a book proposal. Um, they they really have used it to get a literary agent, to get a book publisher. It's hard. I mean, there's a lot of material that's out there in the marketplace.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it really is hard to find the right kind of fit for you and the right place for your book. So writing that business plan or that book proposal, it's hard. Admittedly, it takes a lot of work to pull
Hmm.
this information together. But if you do it and do it successfully, then you're going to find a place that's the right place for your book out there to be published.
Well, Terry, thank you so much for sharing that. It's a lot of great information from your book, and we appreciate that. Those are all of the questions that we have for you today. Do you have any last thoughts for our audience?
Yeah, the thought that I'd give you that's as I've been in some of the top literary agencies in the country in New York City, and I've met with these literary agents, and the thing that's always fascinating to me is that they may all be saying, we're not taking any more clients, our lists are full, pass,
Hmm.
whatever kind of form rejection they're sending back to you. But the reality is that every one of those people, they're reading their email, they're looking at their physical mail that comes in because they're really looking for the next diamond in the rough that can turn into a bestseller. So they're actively all looking for that. No matter what they're telling you, I know because when I meet with them, they're asking me. They say, where's the next nonfiction book that's going to be selling? Where's the
Hmm.
next children's book that's going to really take off? Where's the next novel? They're looking for all that material. So no matter what feedback you get, you should be encouraged that there is great opportunity out there for you. I believe that we live in these days that we're living in, we live in one of the greatest times in human history
Hmm.
because look at all the people we can reach with our phone around the
Right,
world. I mean,
right.
it's incredible. So we have to seize that opportunity and really find the right place
Hmm.
for our book out there in the market.
Okay, great. And Terry, share with our audience how people can contact you if they want to follow up.
Well, one of the best things I would encourage them to do is to get my book for one
Hmm.
thing. And one of the
Hmm.
best places for them to do that is to go to the website bookproposals.ws. So plural, bookproposals.ws for website. And that'll take you to a site where you can download my full book, put your email address in there and get the book in whatever format you need it for your iPhone or your iPad or whatever kind of device you're looking at. You can get that book. Now, why would I give away my full manuscript to you? Well, it's because at Morgan James we've learned through the years that if you get my free ebook and start to read that free ebook, there is a high probability you're going to turn and buy the print copy of the book from wherever you buy your print copies.
Hmm.
So by giving away a free ebook, I lose nothing. Instead, we're basically driving print book sales by you doing that.
Wow. Okay.
So go to bookproposals.ws and check that out. I also have a blog. Uh, You can find me on X, Twitter. I have 175,000 followers over there. I have my personal email address
Mhm.
in my Twitter profile, and it's because I want to help people. I want to reach them. I want them to be able to easily reach me and then help them achieve whatever it is they want to achieve because
Mhm.
the book publishing business is hard. It's hard to get connected to the right person, and so I want to help people however I can.
Well, I tell you, thank you so much for sharing your information, your time, your skill, all of that with us. We are grateful here at Earrings Off, and as always, it's great to talk with you. We wish you the very best, Terry.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and love talking to you guys. Thank
All
you so
right.
much.
Have a
All
good
right.
one.
Take care.